2022 special meeting of the Lake Bluff PCZBA. Could we have call to order and roll call, please?
Certainly. Member Danley.
Here.
Member Fisher. Member Miller.
Here.
Member Russell.
Here.
Member Sorensen.
Here.
Member Toll.
Here.
Chair Peters.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Non-agenda items and visitors. As the public is aware, we allocate 15 minutes during each of our meetings for any issue that is not on the agenda to be addressed. We allocate 3 minutes per individual if they want to address the board. Any issue that needs to be addressed this evening other than the agenda item? Hearing none, let's proceed to agenda item number 3 or 4. I've got the old one. Agenda item number.
You wanted
Oh, okay. Anyone who wishes to participate in tonight's hearing, I'd like you to stand, raise your right hand. All right. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God? Yes, sir. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. Public hearing, Rio Development Plan, 503 Sunrise Avenue. North Shore Water Reclamation District Pumping Station at Sunrise Beach. Mr. Cole, could you provide us with an overview, please?
Certainly. So on this occasion, this process really being driven by the North Shore Water Reclamation District, NSWRD, who is an applicant because we, the village, own this property as well. We also serve as a co-applicant. With that said, really, I'll do what I typically do from the spot of the dais. I'll give an overview of really the procedural things to keep in mind, and then we'll let NSWRD make a presentation and walk through the materials they've given you. So the first preliminary matter I'd say is, as I think members of the PCZBA have seen, on this packet was originally circulated for hearing a couple weeks ago. It's generally unchanged. The biggest change was that we received some drawings from NSWRD's engineering consultant, AECom, that really start to get very specific with what they'll need to do the underground, I should say, overflow basin that's really driving this project. So those drawings speak to the engineering parts of this. It speaks to the footprint of the basin and where the manholes will be, how it'll be designed. Their scope of work wasn't to draw everything that's proposed tonight. So just understand that those drawings aren't meant to be extensive. They're meant to add detail to the earlier drawings in the packet. I'd also point out too, we circulated earlier today, and you have at the dais some updated drawings from TESCA. So those drawings are, again, reacting the additional specificity added by AECom, trying to make everything line up. We can talk a little bit more about those towards the end of the TESCA presentation. Just emphasizing that those drawings there at the dais, they have a bit more detail for you. I wouldn't characterize them as dramatic changes, but some items have changed. So with that all said, we're here to conduct a Rio development plan or review for the pumping station. So the village's Rio zoning district is a special zoning district. It's essentially a mandatory plan development tool. It only really applies to, as you might guess from the name, recreational, institutional, and open space uses in the village. Before Rio came about, those were treated the same as single-family homes under our zoning code. The Rio development process tries to provide additional transparency and public involvement into what's going on in these parcels of land, and in exchange it provides a great deal of flexibility for changing the rules that the village has that otherwise would apply to, again, houses or commercial businesses to get to good development outcomes. So in this case, we're talking about modifications to this existing pumping station down at Sunrise Beach. The North Shore Water Reclamation District needs to build a large overflow basin. So right now, if there's a planned maintenance or a mechanical failure, or less common now, an electrical failure at the pumping station, all of the sanitary sewage in the village flows downhill to the pumping station. It builds up, it has nowhere to go until it comes out of a manhole there at the station, and then flows into Lake Michigan as it did long ago before there was a pumping station. That's why it's located down there. This basin, 1 million gallons, would provide, on a typical day, we understand from an SWRD, about 2 days of the ability to hold sewage on site, and to allow them to make a repair or to do maintenance or what have you, before you'd start to have the risk that, again, you'd have an uncontrolled discharge into Lake Michigan. And again, I'll leave it to the folks from NSWRD to talk about their needs for this in the design. So procedurally, when what you're asked tonight to do is to review and make a recommendation to the village board about this plan. If this plan is approved, from here going forward, when a building permit application comes in, we'll take out the plan and we'll compare the two, and if it matches, it'll proceed. Approving this plan, again, modifies many of the zoning rules that might be applicable to this property. So unlike in other circumstances, you don't need to find that there's a hardship here. You don't need to find that the applicant tried to minimize how much they were deviating from the rules. You just need to find that the applicant has met certain standards to approve the plan, and by doing so, approve those deviations. In the packet, again, you've got,
Can you go through those standards?
Sure. So these are in the public packet as well on page 2, and I'll put them up on the screen as well for those who care to follow along. So you'll really have 2 sets of standards here. The first is just necessary to approve the plan, so there won't be, for example, an undue effect upon adjacent property, the character of the area, public health, safety, general welfare, that the plan is in accordance with, why we have zoning, why we have the Rio District, any parts of the comprehensive plan, that the development in accordance with the Rio Development Plan will be served by essential facilities, so streets, public utilities, refuse, so on. That you'll have traffic compatible with surrounding uses, that you'll minimize traffic congestion, that you provide adequate landscaping, public open space, buffering features, that you'll provide adequate pedestrian and bicycle access and circulation, and that you'll protect, culturally sensitive areas, historic areas, natural, scenic, ecological areas, and features such as ravines, wetlands, and bluffs.
Thank you.
So, and I'll add to grant a deviation, you need to find that you're achieving the purposes for which a plan can be approved, again, that you're not violating these purposes, goals, and objectives, and ultimately that the deviations allow amenities that aren't otherwise required, and the use itself may be an amenity. So, and of course, the applicant has discussed each of these statements in the application materials too. So in the packet, just an overview, you have all the drawings and application materials from the applicant, including statements responding to each of these standards. The Park District has a plan, not a village plan, about the development of Sunrise Park and Beach. We've included a full copy of that plan, as well as some analysis from our view as staff as to how this plan lines up or deviates from that plan. I'll note here that the Park District, to my knowledge, hasn't done that same review themselves, but they've provided a letter of support for the project that's in the public comment attached to the application. And then finally, we outline also the different deviations we've identified from the code. I'll note here too, the new drawings from TESC actually propose an additional one essentially around the trash enclosure. Typically, trash receptacles need to be enclosed in the village. Again, probably easier if we come back to that towards the end of the presentation. So happy to answer any preliminary questions, or we can invite the applicant up.
Yeah, who will be presenting this evening on behalf of the petitioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tom Swarthout. I'm the trustee for the 4th Ward of the North Shore Water Reclamation District. And thank you for having us this evening. I've attended a number of hearings on this subject matter, and we're thrilled to be at this stage. Obviously, this is a very timely project for us. We are funding this out of our own reserves, so we aren't going to go to the marketplace, which was our initial thought process, but the bond market has certainly moved in a not a favorable way for us. I know your position. I was a former alderman in Lake Forest and know firsthand the challenges that you face with the lakefront. our role, our mission is really to preserve and protect Lake Michigan, and that's why we're putting in this 1 million gallon tank. But as a former chairman of our park board and alderman, I was always disappointed with the aesthetics of the building down on the lake, and almost embarrassed about it. But it's a functional building, and as I kind of remind so many, the reason the sanitary district has no debt is because it's run by engineers, and their role is to try to build buildings that are efficient. The way they look aren't really, it's kind of secondary. And so I think this plan really addresses some of the unfortunate aesthetics of the two buildings down there. And we've really enhanced it, I think, above and beyond what I think our role is. I have 4 other trustees who aren't really aware of the details and the expense that I think we're going to undertake on this project. And with the input of staff and the other hearings, I think we've come up with a really spectacular project that will, I think, serve the needs of the village and certainly will help protect Lake Michigan. With that, I'd like to introduce Nick Patera with Tesca Associates. He's been involved in this project from the get-go, and Steve Waters from the Sanitary District is also here with us to be able to answer any technical or engineering questions that you may have. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good evening. Nick Patera is my name. I handed out in front of everybody, I just didn't want to miss anyone. If there's someone else who needs one of these packets, these were sent out late this afternoon by Glenn, so it's the same that you received email, just paper copy for convenience sake. I think Tom had some important things that influenced these plans. It was the constructive comments that we've received from the village that has caused the plan to be evolved. Some of the things that in particular that we were asked to look at was as part of the the 1 million gallon storage tank was another structure that was going to be placed on the east facade of the building called the wet well. It was a return, almost like a tank, 20 feet long, 13 feet wide, that had to go on the east facade. We've actually relocated that now, so it's not blocking the view as you come around the corner of the property. And then in addition to this wet well building, we've been able to place 2 bathrooms. One's an ADA or a family bathroom, larger size, and then one's more conventional bathroom. So that was changed since some of you had seen the last plan. And finally, the area that's between what's now the Yacht Club and the south building is called the Odor Control Building, is where we can have, in essence, an alley that will have the trashing receptacle. It's an 8-yard trash receptacle, which is what Park District has now. They're comfortable with that size. In fact, when we tried to downsize it, they said, no, we need big. We need 8 yards. And then there's still enough room. I'm really referring to the image that Glenn just put up on the screen. There's 2 little blue squares. The bigger of the 2 is an 8-yard trash dumpster. The smaller could be recycle, which would really be nice to have down there when it's party time and you want to recycle your empties and your cans and boxes and things. That area needs to stay open. There's access to subsurface manholes and utilities there. So the idea would be that if there is going to be a need to get access to underground manholes in the area where the trash is, we can move the trash dumpsters out just like you would when you're emptying them and get access to that alley way to get to subsurface manhole covers. I counted up about 11 or 12 different things that we're doing in addition to the 1 million gallon tank, but I think that these are attributes, public benefits that are coming along with the program. If you go back to the overall view for a minute, starting up at the very top of the hill, as you come down, the road will be repaved. That was a question that was asked, that after our construction is over, that asphalt drive will be repaved. As you get down to the elbow of the road where it makes a turn, we've narrowed it slightly, and what you're seeing there isn't here today, but the wider planting bed up against the north facade of the existing buildings will be able to accommodate some vertical plantings, very much like the Park District Master Plan had. In addition, the smaller rectangle that's the top left of that yellow buildings, that's where a lot of the mechanical, electrical switchgear is located. There will be some screening that will be along that, so you're not looking at transformers and wiring and conduit at that location. So as we come through, there'll still be 2 rinsing showers to get the sand off your feet before you get back dressed after you visit the beach. The grid pattern that we're showing here is a exposed aggregate with the white bands that you're seeing are just a broom finish concrete. It's durable, but it's also able to accommodate vehicles. But really what it's trying to do is to unify North Beach to South Beach and act like a plaza, something that could be used when it's not needed to get vehicles through, something that really feels like it's unifying and not separated into the 2 beaches. There had been comments about the structure of that concrete, that we would score it in such a way that there would be paneling that you could, if it does need to get replaced. It's very conventional concrete with pea gravel finish, not colored concrete or not exotic stone in it. It's straightforward and small scale that I could still walk on it on bare feet and not say ouch. So that's important too. We want people to have a good time when they come down here. As you came down that drive, the metal guardrail that's on the Bluff side would get replaced with a wooden guardrail. Anybody who's been to Forest Beach in Lake Forest, it would be something quite similar to that. And then as we go further, the wet well building is it's labeled new wet well. That had been on the east side of the existing pump house building, but now we have them all lined up. So when you come around that corner, you're getting a pretty clean shot looking south along that east facade of the buildings. The smaller, to the south of the wet well are 2 restroom buildings. Like I said, one ADA, one conventional, and then there's a small staircase that you see a gap that's going up to the generator. What's not there anymore? Barbed wire and container meeting you for the generator, but the generator has actually been lifted vertically and pushed back toward the bluff without damaging the bluff. It's actually suspended on almost like a podium above the bluff, but that container will still stay. It will get painted, and sorry, the barbed wire is going to go away. The building enhancements, great, thank you, are showing up. What's not here is to the right, the 2 big doors have to stay there. Those are access to the pump house building, which is the building on the right. But there was a davit arm, kind of a crane device that was used. That will no longer be up there. So now what you're seeing is the color and accent of the buff color brick, and the dark gray trim is unified. The generator is hiding behind a screen back between the 2 buildings. You can kind of see it peeking up from behind. The landscape in the foreground replaces, there was questions about what happened to the vine screens. We don't need them because we really have a wide planting bed up against the building rather than just more decorative elements on the structure itself. The 2 doors on the lower left are the 2 bathrooms, and then the wet well building is about where that little scale person is walking. We've made the rooftops all of the same height, again, to try and just get a unified horizontal plane going through here. The trash receptacle is quite a ways back up against the bluff, but not into the bluff, and that's the kind of south end of the elevations. So altogether, with all these things, there are about 11 or 12 different, call it elements, in addition to the storage basin that have been added to the enhancement of public benefits here that we think are attractive additions to the beach. So I'm happy to answer questions if you have them.
What does a wet well do?
Wet well is it's a return, I need Steve here to explain this. It basically will take water that's, wastewater that has begun to overflow, transfer it from the pumping station to the storage basin, and then in reverse, once the storm event has occurred, the storage basin would be emptied into the wet well, and it's basically a transfer vessel, but with an air gap in it, and it's an enclosed, completely enclosed structure.
And we have one now.
No.
No.
No. You don't need one, you don't have one now because you have no storage basin. If there aren't any questions, I can come back if you have questions.
I've got
Yes.
just a brief one on the existing structure. There's just a small outcropping on the east side with an overhead door. I believe that used to be for vending machines. Looks like on the new drawings that will be removed. Is that
We
right?
were showing that to be removed.
Okay, thank you.
And Nate, I noticed on the new drawings that actually my wife noticed and pointed it out to me. The generator sticks up above the louvered screens, and the last version, 2 weeks ago, it did not. If the generator height is indeed that high, and I know it's in an older box, is there any reason why the louvered screens cannot be extended to completely screen the generator? Since we're working on trying to improve the entire appearance of the structure.
Maybe that or painting the generator, the darker accent color could help by looking at this.
I don't think that's enough. I mean, I think, the big comment, I'm sorry, but they said how they look is secondary, and I don't agree with that. I think we can work harder on doing something to make this building a little bit more attractive, since it's the first thing we see when we go down to the beach. So, I think there's some valid points that were taken in previous meetings, and Architect did a fabulous plan also. We have the Park District that is pleading for screens, and it seems that we're just eliminating screens, saying we don't need it, and that was the voice from parties or previous comments, and I don't recall that being something that we should overlook or discard in building up this building. Because I know your job is to do so much that's, subterranean, right? And we need it. But we also have something above ground that needs to be attended to as well.
Can I clarify? George asked about the generator. Are you referring to generator?
I'm referring to the generator, about the screens, about the look of the building in general, about how previous comments are, I'd like to hear from more people in the audience, but I guess I'm just saying that, you're saying that there's a screen, but the screen is not really doing the job of screening anything important right now. I still see some pipe and saying that you don't need it below, and you're gonna have small trees below. I'm just questioning, is that enough? That's all.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Nate, specifically, is there a reason why the louvered screen could not be higher? I know down in Highland Park, going down that beach road, I think it's the same screens that are there. The
I would-
screens are awfully high.
Yeah, I would concur with that comment. I think that we've done a great job. I would just disagree with the one comment, because we do take the aesthetics of the building very seriously. And so on the north elevation, we actually do raise that screen. In fact, it doesn't exist now. We're raising that screen up so it will hide all the mechanicals, the generator, or not the generators, but the transformer and some of the conduits. In this elevation, though, the only person that will be able to see the top of that generator will have to be in a boat about a mile out. So if it can be seen from the ground level, we'll certainly raise that elevation of that screening. But I would just challenge that. I don't think anybody's going to be able to see that at that point. And you're right, I would love to see more screening when it comes to the landscaping. I'm the big advocate in the room for the the mural thing on the north elevation. I think that's a phenomenal idea that I came up with, but I get pushback from some, not just in this room, but others. So I get a lot of people who think it's a phenomenal idea to have Mark McMahon do a big. I wish I would hear some support on that, but I guess I'm not gonna get it.
Glenn, could you maybe clarify in terms of process for everyone, in case the discussion evolves into detailed aesthetics of the building wall? Is this project going to the Architectural Board of Review or not?
Sure, it is. It'll be going immediately after this, at the next meeting of the ABR here in a couple weeks. So to maybe clarify a bit too, you know, the Rio plan, right, is built around those standards. You know, those are interpreted a little differently for an existing project where we're doing renovations and things like that. But, you know, at some point, you know, when we get into, there are some aesthetic issues that will more properly be in the purview of the Architectural Board of Review. At the same time, when we're talking about things like screening, like landscaping, like the character of areas, you know, there are some things that are I think, safely within your purview as well. There's not a bright line there, but, you know, you need to work through, you know, what the particular issues are. I do have a couple things I'd add on the new TESCA drawings. I don't want to interrupt questions with Mr. Patera before going into that.
Yeah. Can I just ask one? I saw that the letter of support from the Park District was the 11th of August. A few of these things have changed since, and I'm assuming, was that in reaction to things they said, or they just haven't chimed in since, or this is something we know that they will like?
We made these changes, well, we were influenced by that letter. The essence of what they said was, at least from a plan changed, was to relocate the trash enclosure. We did look, and that's why it is where it is. Before it was out in front of the building, on the east side of the building, now it's tucked back in. There may have been some other details there, but that was the main, at least plan influence.
Okay, yeah, because it seems like it's really streamlined a lot of things, so I'm assuming that they were in favor of the changes or helped support them or something.
Yeah, they had other details, Deb, that were more like, you know, do you have heat in the bathrooms, things like that. But that didn't influence at least the plan elements.
Great, thank you.
Other comments from the commissioners with respect to the applicant?
I guess the comment that you just made sparks a question. Are those seasonal bathrooms or are they year-round?
I think they'll be year-round, but it really is the Park District's responsibility to kind of maintain them. Well, obviously, we need to have heat in the building for the plumbing issues, but I think it'll be their call whether they want to keep them open year-round or not. I just want to make this one point. Our goal is to be able to take this area out of service for one season. So we want to put this on the street and bid it this fall, well, frankly, in a month. The aesthetic issue, I think we can work through. I mean, the exposed aggregate, what size is the aggregate? Is it going to be broom finish between those? But we really want to be able to get this out to the street, to be able to bid it out so we can get in the ground this fall. And so we'll be able to take this area of the beach out of circulation for next summer only, and to be able to complete it then the following spring. Because it'll be a major disruption to the beach. And to lose this fall would be really unfortunate. And we think we're hitting the timing in terms of the construction world pretty good. A lot of the projects, the major projects, haven't been taken or are being completed now. Concrete's come down significantly. We think there'll be a lot of contractors who will be very aggressive. And so that's really the goal. If you want a color of the trim, the height of the louvers, those issues we can deal with in the near future. We really just want to get a sense, because Steve is actually, you know, we are, as we speak, applying to I think the Army Corps and the other federal agencies to do this. Because it's a $10 million project, so it's a major undertaking for us to do this. And it was not a layup when it came to the other trustees on the board. I'm sure they're not watching this tonight, but it was a challenge for us to get this approved. And that is now unanimously approved by the other trustees.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so just a little bit on these new drawings. These came in a few hours ago, so we didn't prepare a staff memorandum to accompany them. We wanted to get them into your hands for tonight. As Mr. Patera said, there's really three things. You can see them all here from the elevations. So you have the new pipe, or I shouldn't say new pipe, there's an existing pipe that's rerouted in the AECom drawings. You have that bit of a gap between the generator and the louvered fence. And then you have the trash receptacles moving from the facade of the building, kind of tucked back into that alley. So from our standpoint as staff, we can talk about how these are worked in, if you include them in recommendations. You know, the pipe we think should be as hidden as possible. We've already spoken with Mr. Waters about that, who's working with AECom to find a different routing for the pipe, whether that's going around the generator or under the generator or something to keep it from being an exposed span like that. We're looking also at, you know, the generator being completely hidden from view. You know, can that louvered fence go a little bit taller? Right now it is true that, you know, there's probably, I'm going from eye here, you know, the wet well building, you know, just looking at it flat on an elevation is perhaps a bit deceptive, right? You know, there's a building that's so tall and so deep and so on that may make it difficult to see it from the ground level as an observer. If this is enough, is an extra couple feet of louver too much? I'm not sure. Again, we trust that to you all to opine on. And then finally, on the left, you know, a trash receptacle, when it was up front and more visible, it had an enclosure around it. That's typically required by the village code, is you need to have an enclosure around your trash and recycling receptacles, four-sided. So that's typically hard side on three sides and then an operable gate or louver on one side. You can recommend it without that. Understand that that's an additional deviation from the code effectively. I'm not sure what reason there would be not to have that around this, but it is true that however the new yacht club facility comes through, this may be very, you know, may be hard to see as it is, but is that a reason not to provide it? Again, we defer to the group on that.
Where's the shower gonna go? I don't see it on there.
The showers are visible right there at the right end of this, what I would call the front facade, the view from Lake Michigan.
I guess before we get to public comment or questions, what's the total height of the building? And then what sort of foliage were you anticipating planting on the north side?
I'd have to go back to the plans. There is no change to the height of the building on the right. That's the pump house, or the building on the left. That's the odor control building. Those aren't changing. I don't have the numbers. I know we have them. I just don't have them off the top of my head.
Okay. And what sort of height for plantings are you contemplating on the north side?
The plants, you're saying?
The trees.
Yes, right. Those will probably be about 14 to 16 feet initially. They can be vertical, upright type plantings. And we could look at that as, there they are, thank you, as either evergreen or deciduous or some mix of that. But they'll go in initially at about 12 to 14 feet.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the public? Okay.
Mickey Collins, 217 East Scranton. Yeah, I have just a few slides. I think I have 4 here, so I'm not going to bore you with a big slideshow or anything like that. But actually, I mean, we're very happy with many of the things that have changed about this since its very first proposal. So I just have a few comments here. But number one, I just, maybe this is clarified, but there are a lot of differences between the TESCA drawings and the AECom drawings. So AECom drawings key to a guardrail detail, but the detail isn't provided. And there's no notation about what it is, so just want to make sure that it's actually going to be a wood guardrail like that was mentioned, so that's great. But the one on, the picture on the right is the Lake Forest access road guardrail, and that's what we're hoping we get in for Lake Bluffs Road.
You will get it.
Okay. And there were so many things, I shouldn't say so many, but maybe a half dozen things that I noticed that, Glenn, you described the AECom drawings as adding detail, whereas it seemed like they kind of took things backward a little bit. So why don't you go, what's the next slide? Okay, so this is an important one because that widened out planting area, where we should actually be able to plant it even more densely than that rendering from the Park District. That is not shown. The AECom drawings very clearly show new pavement following the existing curb line. So one big question in my mind is how you can approve two sets of drawings that aren't actually coordinated yet. You know, if you approve the package you have, are you getting that, or are you getting what AECom shows in its plans? So the second one is, the third slide actually just relates to this, and it just shows, you know, kind of the extent of the area that can be reclaimed for a much denser area of planting. One other point, and I don't have a slide for it, we were talking a lot about heights there on the generator and the, what's either called the diversion structure or the wet well. In the AECom drawings, it's shown extremely low, and then the TESCA drawings show it kind of aligning, well, and that's, I mean, the TESCA, I think, is the intent that we should have. It would be nice if the AECom drawings actually matched the TESCA drawings and actually showed that structure being at the elevation that we hope we get, right? The final thing, though, that I think is yes, this is, I think, the thing that concerns me the most, and that is just that this basin is rotated in plan. I guess that's to kind of align it with the bluff, but it has a big impact because what happens then, what is shown on the left is the early Lake Bluff Yacht Club plan. They haven't, I don't know where the status of their plans, I don't know where they are, but their clear intention was to not exceed their current footprint, at least not go to the east of it and not project out into the beach any further. And that's what we certainly, I think, want as a community. But what happens as a logical effect of this rotated basin that will be below that yacht club is that you can see that the dots are actually kind of where the yacht club ends today, and then it's shown in an earlier plan, but this wasn't part of the packet, but it shows how it swings, rotates out of alignment with the other buildings, and then extends to the east. So I think, I mean, I understand that it's difficult if the yacht club doesn't yet have a design, but I know that the AECom structural engineers should be able to provide for supporting foundations of the yacht club if they put a building at the front, which is what they're talking about. Because I think the lid of the basin is 3 feet down and 3 feet of sand on top, right? But that's the depth of a footing. So that means the footings are gonna sit on the lid of this basin, any footings that get put in, even if it's supporting just a fenced enclosure around this. It just really worries me that we might move ahead without getting this coordinated. I think it would be very helpful if the basin was not rotated, and it would be very helpful if the engineers were at least figuring out a zone where the yacht club could bring footings down and support them on the roof of that structure. And then also, in the AE comp plans, there are a number of manholes, but then like 3 rectangles. I'm not sure if they're access hatches or, so these things will be obstructions. The yacht club will have to keep those free. They'll have to keep them accessible. It's going to make it very tough. And, you know, the yacht club is a beloved institution here in Lake Bluff, and this storage facility serves a lot of people, it's moved from sailboats to sailboats, stand-up paddle boards and kayaks. There are a lot of people come down all days of the week and access their equipment there. I mean, it's something that we need, we don't want to lose, and we don't want to make it impossible for them to actually do something that's an asset to the beach. So the point I want to make too is that this basin plan was originally planned to start construction a year from now. And it was advanced in planning to capture lower interest rates, but that's gone away because it's not, it's going to be self-funded now by the Reclamation District. So I just wonder why, you know, if we don't have all of our ducks in a row, we don't have coordinated drawings, do we need to push this forward quite so fast? Could we wait 1 year and start construction later? Because this really concerns me, and I don't want to set it up so that the yacht club just can't, it has to go away. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, before you start, just one question. Can you explain, Mickey, and I'm not sure I understood, where you're gonna put the basin and it's on a tilt or an angle? I'm not sure I understand that concept, where the footings will be only 3 feet.
You know, oh gosh, an early presentation actually had construction photos from Lake Forest Basin when it was being built, and that was so helpful to actually see it, because what this basin is, it's subterranean. It has columns that support this lid, and in Lake Forest, above it is a parking lot, but here, above it is going to be a beach. The lid's going to have to be engineered for some significant loads, because the dynamic loading of dump trucks full of sand will have to be accounted for. I mean, they're going to have to drive over this every spring when that sand replenishment is done. And the yacht club originally, I guess, was assuming, or maybe some early drawings kind of showed this basin just sort of aligning with the other structures, and it would make more sense then, because the column lines would work pretty well for some transfer beams or whatever would support footings for a yacht club structure. And the yacht club structure is not going to be a real heavy structure. It's going to be like a glorified garage, basically. But still, I mean, my whole career, I led projects where I had to get a whole bunch of stakeholders together. We had to talk them out at the beginning and figure out the right solution. And, coordination, the yacht club should be at the table, and even if they don't have their final worked out plan, at least there can be a design that will accommodate something for them, right? So that they can actually build a structure there.
Well, we do have a basic design that they presented the last time we met.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the one I saw, and I think their most recent one, it was more containers, and then it had an upper deck that cantilevered out, but there was no structure. I mean, I know that they're still working on it.
Yeah, but you can't hold up a municipal project for something that's private, in my mind. But if they can come across with some basic design element.
Well, I
I
mean,
understand they want to get this done, and I can understand that. And if it's the yacht club that's holding them up because they haven't put all their ducks in order, so to speak, I would leave it attendant on them to come across and say what they need, and then the two parties should get together. I wouldn't hold up the whole process just because they haven't gotten their act together.
Well, but I guess I'm just asking that there is a coordination between the two. They're probably gonna work for another whole year on the design of their thing, right? But there has to be some way that they can build something. That's my only point.
Right, but they should be coming, just showing something basic to say, this is the minimum what we need.
Right.
Has the yacht club talked with you about this?
For sure. Yeah, we've had a number of meetings with the yacht club, so we can accommodate their needs for sure. I would remind those who would delay the project a year, because I do have the other trustees who are ready to go, as well as the construction industry, as we pointed out earlier. But over the last few months, we've had 3 overflows into Lake Force's retention basin, and we were fortunate enough to have it. The idea that we would wait a year and we'd have a potential overflow.
No, I'm not arguing with you on this.
Yeah, I know that. I just want to point that out to those who may want to delay a year. I've been in the construction business my whole life. Delaying any project for a year, sometimes the projects just kind of go away. So, the iron is hot. So.
Yeah, and if I can just say, I think that the Park District, it sounded like they were already coordinating their schedules for next year, trying to figure out how they were gonna place, they can't use the beach, so I think they're in talks with Lake Forest to be able to combine forces and sailing programs and different things. So I think there are a lot of moving parts, obviously, that are kind of hinged on this calendar, anyway.
Is there any way of understanding the hardship ahead of time for the yacht club with the shifting of, talking about operable parts to it and having a hardship for a boat or the members of the yacht club with how it's built now? I mean, can an engineer speak on, of what they can foresee?
Yeah, I don't see any structural issues whatsoever when it comes to the yacht club. I think they know that the only restriction is access into the tank, and those manholes have to be not blocked. Other than that, they can rearrange their column loads based on our columns. It's never been an issue that they've raised when I've been in the room, and I know the architect well. So I don't want to belabor this, but we certainly want to accommodate the yacht club, and I know the president is a former commander, so I want to try to help out the mayor best I can.
Isn't that Commodore?
Commodore, sorry.
Is it okay if I make one more comment, just based on your response? Sure. Sorry. What the point he made about them having to align their columns with the basin's columns is exactly right. I mean, that's what they are going to be forced into doing. So if the basin is rotated like that, then when the yacht club needs to get their approval, and I assume they come to the zoning board, right? They'll come through for an approval. It's going to be rotated because it's going to be aligning with the columns in the basin below. And it likely will be moving out into the beach. As the plan that the plan that wasn't part of the packet, but the earlier plan shows. And that's just logically, structurally what has to happen. That's why I really wish that the basin could be turned and then the columns would be in the proper alignment for the yacht club to use, and it would just, I'm not sure if it's so essential that this basin be rotated. But I will not make any more comments.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Sure,
Just
sure.
very briefly, by way of information, so as Mr. Swartout said, the Lake Bluff Yacht Club has been involved in this project for some time. They don't have a final design yet. I understand they'll be presenting something to the village board here in a couple weeks at their next meeting. The reason that's going to the village board is a fewfold, primarily because this is village property and they never reached a lease or a license agreement or anything like that with the village for the use of this property. So before it even comes to you from a zoning perspective, which would be in the form of another Rio development plan, much like this review process, they need to have the right to use the village property and to put something back in. I'll also point out too that, and this has come up from time to time about going closer to the beach, farther from it, the use of public land and so on. But, you know, especially here, typically the village's rules prevent, you know, any construction below the bluff line, right? So allowing construction to happen at all below the bluff or to, you know, push further towards Lake Michigan, that is all in the world of, you know, these deviations that have to be considered from the perspective of approving a plan. So, you know, no one is, you know, this board can't be forced to approve a plan that continues to take up space towards Lake Michigan, you know. And of course, that's something that, you know, we'll see what the yacht club's designs have and how these parts interact. That's not to discount any of the points being made here about, you know, whether rotating the basin will make their job easier or harder. I can't say, but just wanted to add some clarity to the process there.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Sir? Your turn. You've been patient. If you could state your name for the record, please.
Hello, Tom Zarzi, 500 Sunrise Avenue. Almost directly west of where this construction is going to happen. First, I want to say thank you for showing the drawing of the basin. It's the first time I've seen it. I'm assuming it's approximately where the yacht club is today. The second thing I wanted to ask is, why does that construction have to happen in the summer? The beach, the yacht club, all those activities essentially stop sometime in October and don't pick up again until April, May, or June, somewhere in that time period. I see no reason why the contract can't be let that the contractor can knock his socks off and do whatever he wants to from whenever they start until some reasonable time in the spring. April, May, June, pick a reasonable time. Let the people that use the bluff and the beach work in the summer, and you can go back to work with the construction whatever number of winters you want to work from then on. But to me, the reason this is all happening is to improve the lifestyle in Lake Bluff. And I see no reason why you have to stop people from using the bluff or using the beach in the summertime when construction can be scheduled around it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I guess from the petitioner's perspective, why don't the ACOM drawings and the TESCA drawings match?
The short answer is they will. But why don't they? This was a Friday afternoon. Let's get something as quickly together to show some adjustments that have been made. AECOM came out with their plans the latter part of last week, and we did our work on Friday this week, and here they are on Monday. So there's, you know, bound to be some coordination. I don't doubt it, but I think that the idea is that we're going to have them match up. There's not an attempt here to try and say, oh, we showed you something on AECOM and it wasn't on TESCA plan or vice versa. They will match.
They'll match your plan or their plan?
They will both match what we are. So specifically, will the road get, will the planting bed on the north side of the road get widened? Yes. Will the height of the wet well diversion structure match the top of the bathrooms? Yes. So both their plans and our plans will need to be modified so that they coordinate.
And then the rationale for not wanting to delay the project for a year is not necessarily financial, it's more environmental, it's more taking care of the community, so to speak. What's the rationale?
I think the latter is more important. I think certainly the cost is going to escalate by, pick a number because of the escalation of all pricing in the construction world. So my assumption is the project will go up 10% from now, from a year from now. But, this is a political decision by the other trustees. And so they have approved the project based on this starting this fall. It will have to be revoted. But it'd be shame on me not to be able to convince this board and others that we should start this fall. And the AECOM's project will match ours. I need to remind people here and maybe at home, we're putting in 8-yard garbage receptacle. It's not garbage that we are disposing of. We're putting in bathrooms, not that our employees are using. A lot of we're putting in concrete that will be able to support heavy trucks, sand trucks, garbage trucks, not for our use, but for the use of the village. We're trying to create a plaza that can be utilized for events. That was my goal. And my other trustees are probably wondering, why are you doing this? We have a pump station, and that purpose is to try to prevent water from going into Lake Michigan, yet you're creating this really spectacular space. So I've convinced them that this is the time to move, and some of the comments I accept, but we're really prepared to move forward, and our working drawings have been prepared. We spent a lot of money up to now to move this project forward. So, I think the time is, and if this is to be delayed a year from now, I don't know, what the outcome would be with the other trustees. So but certainly, if we had a major disruption in our line, and not too many months ago, we did have one that was by the bike path in Lake Bluff. It would have been well served if we had that facility up and running, I think. Your village manager knows of that, and we had a cleanup issue that we had to take care of, but it would have been nice to have it flow back into the basin, which it did not. So it's really important, I think, for the environment as well as the economics to move forward tonight or in the near future.
Thank you.
Gary?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you, George.
Hello, I'm Ann Caldwell, 400 Ravine Avenue. First of all, I want to applaud everyone in this room for your service to our community, your efforts to beautify the beach, to protect the environment, and everything that's so loved and beloved of this particular area of our lives. I think Lake Bluff Beach is probably used more than any beach on the North Shore. So many of them are closed to people from other communities. You go down there at sunrise, which I use the beach just about every day of the year, and you will see people there from Libertyville and North Chicago and Gurnee, and it's a welcoming, beautiful place. What we love about our beach is its natural ethos. And you'll go up and down the North Shore and you see a lot of other communities have happily built their beaches into what I like to call a Disney-like charm. But what people love about the Lake Bluff Beach is the natural environment. And whatever we can do to unify all the buildings down there in a way that is in keeping with the bluff, the colors, the prairie, the lake, is something that we will all enjoy for the next number of decades. What we do carefully today, the designs that we come up with, are the ones that we will live with for the rest of our lives, and what our children will live with, because it's not likely to happen again. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to do it, and do it well, do it right, and do it beautifully. And I thank you for supporting that and explaining that to your board, because I understand what their take on it is also, because they're looking at the utilitarian aspect of it. We're looking at that. We thank you for your work on the environment, the environmental impact. But I think it's really important to go deliberately and do this well. One of the observations I had, and it's just a question I want to ask, is about the generator. I've done a little research on the cost of industrial generators, large ones, somewhere around $57,000. I don't know what the life of a shipping container is, but I think it's only about 20, 25 years, and I think that shipping container is almost at that point now. So one of my questions is, looking at this design, could we improve that design by not raising that shipping container so high up and moving it back and using the same container? Can we buy a new generator and build it right into the architecture of the new design? Would it last longer? Would it, in the long run, be a better investment? Will this shipping container fail at some point in the near future? And then we've got it up in the air on a pedestal, and that has to somehow be replaced. And I just wonder if the practicality of that has been looked at. And if we have a bid for replacing that generator with something that can be actually built into the architecture of, we're already adding on to the building, can it be included? Those are my questions, and thank you again so much for all of the service that you guys do for our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Swarthout?
Well, I really appreciate those comments, and you will get a spectacular beach. Related to the generator, we just approved our last hearing, a fix of an existing generator, is an old Waukesha generator. We authorized $450,000 to repair the generator because a new generator is $1 million today and is not available for at least a year. So I was surprised to hear that. I've been very involved in Lake Forest Hospital. We have a number of generators there, and they're very pricey, but they were purchased some time ago. And I think we will look at the way we can just really hide that generator. The reason the generator's brought up and pushed back was to get it back as far, without actually cutting into the toe of the bluff, which is a real no-no. So we will look at trying to hide it and make sure that that container will serve longer than that generator's life. But it's a great question. You know, we've asked that same question because it is hideous looking.
The big vent that goes up and over, is there any way to mitigate that?
I think we're looking at that. I know, we'll look at that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? So we can close the public hearing.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'll just note out loud that, we allow people to participate via Zoom as well in this hearing. So there's 3 people on, I know one of whom is a village staff member. No questions or requests to speak have come in since we've been working here tonight, so.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Having no other questions from the public, we'll close the public hearing and then the committee can deliberate. Any other questions for the petitioners or petitioner?
Yeah, I have several. I know Tom, Ms. Collins has asked the question about the structural constraints of this, an impact on the design of the yacht club. And I know for 3 months, I have also been asking the same question, and has this question not been relayed to the structural engineers? Because this structure has to be able to support a very heavy-duty tracked crawler that the Park District is going to need to run across the beach when the erosion control projects that they have to do is performed. If it can support a tracked crawler, the roof of the structure, in my mind, it can certainly support the type of structure that the yacht club is intending to build, and I asked this question about 3 months ago in writing, and I don't know if it ever made it through to North Shore and to your structural engineers. Is the roof of such a design that it's not going to ultimately constrain how the yacht club can orient their building? Or it seems to me the structural engineers who's ever doing this design can definitively answer that question, and we'll get it off the table.
I'm not the structural engineer, you're a PE, but I gotta believe that it can support that without any question. The design isn't too dissimilar from the Lake Forest design, which has crawlers over it all the time. I mean, you know, it's the parking lot, and it gets some major trucks over it constantly. And I know there'll be 3 feet of load of sand on top of it. I just believe that the structural engineer will be able to answer that question. I'm not the guy, but I'm very confident that we'll be able to take and handle any kind of use at the
So before this
Yeah.
goes to our village board, which is the next step, can that specific question be
yeah.
answered so that we have?
Oh, I thought you wanted me to address it. You're the, this is Steve Waters, he's in charge of the park.
Yeah, the structural engineer has been made aware of the potential loadings there, and they've checked it. A dump truck load of sand can drive across it without any issues, and you're correct, the yacht club requirements are easily met with the existing structural design.
So the only constraints that the yacht club are gonna have, it's not that they're gonna have to align their footings with the footings of the tank, it's just that they're going to have to make sure that they orient themselves with these openings that are predominantly in the back.
Yeah, and they have those drawings, and they're aware of it. We've had discussions with them, so they're aware of where they.
And then all of the structures that are shown in the AECom drawings up near the front, it's my understanding those are all buried under the sand.
Yeah, the 4 circular manholes on the east side are
Yeah, and then
3
there's
feet.
one structure that's just north of the tank. Is that lit also? Because that's going to be in our beach area. Is that also going to be below grade?
I'm not sure which structure you're referring
I
to.
think it's a manhole, access manhole that's going to be over the pipe taking the water from the.
Yeah,
You can
that
come
will be
look-
in the
you can
parking
come look
lot.
at it.
That's in the parking lot, or on the, in
No,
the
it's
pla-
on,
in the
it's on,
plaza.
it's on the beach, and the question is it
I'm
under
not,
the sand? I'm just worried about any structures that need to permanently penetrate the sand, that one dark circle
yeah,
off the northeast corner of the tank.
if I'm not mistaken, if the plaza drawing, I think that's just on the corner of the plaza. I know I apologize for the engineering drawings not matching. AECom has spent the last couple weeks since the last meeting trying to get
I
everything
understand.
reoriented, so we haven't got the details yet, but I believe that is, if that is not in the plaza, it will be in the final design, because that manhole does need to have level access, like
Okay, because
grade access.
I think that curve there is the bituminous,
Yeah,
curved
but
to
that's the
divert the
current,
overflow
one, but
water.
I think the new plaza goes out to the corner, but we'll make
Okay.
sure that is
okay, we just,
located properly.
I'm sure the Park District does not want any permanent structures
On the beach, yeah, no. we
sticking up out of the sand, and it was my understanding that that was not gonna.
No, that will
It's
not,
not gonna
you're
happen.
correct, that will not.
And then, I'm assuming, because, you know, a promise has been made about the aesthetics of the structure, and I hope the details will be worked out by the Architectural Board of Review, but there's miscellaneous temporary wires and everything that have been draped across the front over the years for antennas and all that. Is there, in the design, that's all gonna go away? Or put in conduits and run,
Yeah, all of it's gonna go away. I think the only question we have, and this applies to the other facilities, is that we might need to have a hard wire for our phone system, because the wireless is a challenge there, as I think all of us know who goes down to the beach.
but conduits can be placed so that they're in
Right.
the
Right,
corners and
it's-
not draped, there's loose wires.
It's horrible,
Okay.
yeah, I agree.
And in terms of, Tom, in terms of aesthetics, like I know the balcony is gonna stay, but the whole front southeast corner of the balcony is there plans to redo that?
It all comes
Because it's
down,
all rusting,
it all comes down.
all right.
There's like a shed roof with some asphalt shingles over it, with some bad siding, it's horrible, it's coming down.
Will there be some architectural relief on the front, so it's not just a flat? Would you rebuild the balcony with some railings on it?
I think it goes away.
So just to say it for the tape, so the question was, will there be architectural relief at the front, so it's not just a flat building?
We certainly will address that. We'll replace that and try to create, I don't know if we can match that brick, or we can cannibalize some existing brick to make some details, whether it's a soldier course or some kind of relief that works better
It's gonna be stuck
on that part.
Yeah, because we talked last time about not trying to mismatch the brick, and so we can get stuff where we can get better solution. We're
Like-
talking about the wet well in the bathrooms.
Oh.
Can there be some
Yeah, that's gonna be a stucco material.
We're not trying to make a monument out of it, but there could be some kind of pattern on the facade.
Good place to put a mural. I'm just a smart ass, I'm sorry.
Then just a general response to Mr. Zarzi, since no one commented on his timeline issue. Mr. Zarzi, this project is so massive that it cannot be done in a 9-month period. It's going to take every bit of 18 months to do, and that's why it has to extend through a summer. It's just too big. It can't be done in one, as it is, they're going to be working through the winter, 2 winters. We're under difficult, because the beach is, once it starts, the South Beach is torn up and there is no access. You can't shut the project down. That's just not, I understand that, it's not feasible. So I just wanted you to have some response that the project is just too massive, it can't be done in a 9-month period. And we certainly can't allow them to work 24/7, so. And you did, Mr. Cole, you did indicate that the details of the plantings would all be reviewed by the Architectural Board of Review. And that, I know Mr. Swarthout commented that, I think it was, or maybe it was Nate, that the initial plantings, the taller bushes would be 12 to 14 feet high, so we would have some substance of screening there at the beginning.
That's what Mr. Paterno did say about the height, and then the ABR will review those landscape plantings the same as other architectural and site details.
Okay. And I think that's all I have. Other than, I do understand, and Glenn, you even put it in your memo to us, that the AECom's drawings do not match the TESCA drawings right now, because some of these details and negotiations between the village, the Park District, and North Shore haven't been finalized until very, very recently, and you had to award a design contract to AECom to make the modifications.
Right.
But
And I would not say negotiated, I think we just capitulated.
well,
I think, but it's an improved, I mean, there was a rendering that was shown earlier, and it was completely modified from what it is today. It's a smooth, no bumps and grinds. That's a great, now, the new elevation is so much better than what was originally designed.
okay, and I am personally confident that the construction of this approval to reflect, I mean, the most recent drawings from TESCA, they are, all these details are gonna get incorporated into the AECom drawings, so that the planting beds will be of the width that we've been shown on the TESCA drawings this evening, the most.
Yeah, as
recent
long as your
version.
city engineer agrees to that. The only reservation I would have as a public works guy is, can we get the trucks down there with the right turning radius? And if your what?
I thought there was.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna hit me. If the village engineer finds that radius fine, then we're fine with the planting bed. So you would know better than I, George, if that works.
I would think by now, if there was a concern, that
Yes.
the village would have pushed
Yeah.
back on
Yeah.
this planting widening element.
I thought the comment about the wooden railing was really a great one. So the Lake Forest railing, that meets code, and the concern was would we have to have an IDOT rated railing, and obviously not. So we're really pleased with that change.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners?
I have just a couple questions about the manhole sizes. The one that is, as you pointed out, George, in the northeast corner, is that standard manhole size? And then the 2 access points that will be presumably where the yacht club will site itself, what sizes?
So the one in the north you're talking about, or on the corner that we were talking about earlier?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a standard manhole.
Okay,
And the access hatches are slightly larger because the pumps have to be removed through those hatches. So
okay.
I think they're, about 3 feet square, maybe 3 feet by 4 feet.
Okay,
I don't know the actual, but it's close to that.
okay. All right, thank you.
Oh, one other very detailed comment, I'm sorry, is that the construction limits are shown north of the triangular native planting area at the north edge of the parking lot, and that was clearly something that, on the AECom drawing, so that's
Yeah.
clearly something that we want to modify, because the intention all along has been to protect
The cactus.
that triangular planting area there. So for some reason, they drew it on the north side of the planting area.
I guess from my perspective, obviously, we appreciate the agency's timeliness concerns and the environmental and all the other factors that you're trying to enhance or avoid. From a commission's perspective, I'm just kind of struggling with how do we memorialize all of the various unique characteristics that we're trying to incorporate into this plan. You know, the comments from the village, from the community are certainly well taken. I think the agency has addressed many of them. It's unfortunate that the yacht club hasn't progressed as quickly as the agency has, but I'm not being critical of the yacht club. I know they have their own variables that they're trying to address also. Are we as a commission in a position to determine whether or not we can move it forward tonight? And I'm not taking a position one way or the other, but I just want to have that dialogue a little further. Usually, especially on a project, I didn't realize it was a $10 million project. I must have missed something in the original presentation a couple months ago. I just want to make sure we're tight enough so that 5 years down the line, we're not somehow or another disappointed with the outcome. And I don't think that we will be, but I just want to make sure that we've got everything covered, so to speak. So maybe Mr. Cole, how do we memorialize, or Mr. Schuster, how do we memorialize the concerns, and assuming that the project goes forward at this time as discussed?
Well, I think, the fact that all the comments have been made are in the record, and so that is preserved and will be shared with, the minutes and so forth with the village board. But to the extent you're talking about conditions that you have, that you want to, if you want to recommend approval and add conditions, you can certainly do so. Certainly, I would recommend that your approval be contingent upon updating the plans to be consistent with the TESCA drawings, which I don't think anybody has any concerns with, but, that would be a condition as part of your recommendation. And if there's other conditions that you're particularly concerned about that you think it's important to enunciate as part of your recommendation, so recommend approval subject to the following, you can certainly add those in.
Okay. I mean, some of the critical points obviously are the integration of the plans, making sure that they're synchronized, so to speak. The foliage that is going to be installed or planted on the north side of the building, I think more is better, so to speak. Obviously, the mural was certainly an intriguing issue and would have been well done by Mr. McMahon, but I think the village seems to be more inclined to go with traditional foliage, so to speak. Interfacing whatever the yacht club decides to do, I guess we'll address that when the time comes. But I don't think we'd want the facade of the yacht club to go out any further than the facade of the structure going toward the east. And again, I'm not being critical of the yacht club. Making sure that we have the proper louvers or whatever, the screening, I think that's very, very critical, because the aesthetics, I think, are very, very critical. But I think we're all aligned on that. It's just I want to make sure it's memorialized.
That seems to be the fine line, isn't it, you know, of our hat at PCZBA versus the ABR. And I think what Commissioner Russell had mentioned earlier is just to make sure that we have those key points listed that will be heard at the ABR, that how we feel it's important, and then they're going to turn that into the change, right?
Yeah.
Or policy, or.
No, I think that's totally it, Ms. Danley.
So you could include in your recommendation, if you wanted, that staff shall transmit to the ABR your recommendation on the louvers, or if you want them to consider something and add anything else that you think would be appropriate for the staff to pass on, you can certainly
Like
do
even
that.
questioning the height, so to speak, even on the north side, you know, questioning the height of the screens, and make sure that's even a conversation. I mean, how do you, guess you just,
Attend the
Excuse me, will there be screens plus foliage? Is that what we're saying?
I guess I'm lost at that comment. So we're talking about screening foliage. I mean, so there's a public comment in the packet that talks about screens attached to the wall. That's not proposed to be included here.
Right.
So just want to make sure we're clear on that.
okay.
But there's gonna be some screening in addition to the foliage, or not? On the north end?
The louvers,
The
you're talking the
louvers.
louvers.
Yeah, the
There'll be
louvers.
both.
There's mechanical screens that are fixed like fences. There's also painting that's going to be used as,
So it'll be both on the north side?
Yeah.
and easy.
Right, right.
There's a person raising their hand.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Just a question. Is it understood?
I guess you'll have to, thank you.
My question involves the footprint of the yacht club. Is it understood that that will remain the same as it is, or will it necessarily take up more beach space?
I guess I'm not sure whether that's a topic of discussion tonight, but I think it's probably going to be a concern of
I think it would
the
be a
board
great
when the
concern
time comes, and concern of the public.
if it were a larger footprint than it is now. I think that would concern a lot of people. The
Believe-
beach has diminished so much over the years as it is.
I believe their last presentation, it was no larger than their current footprint.
Good, okay. Would that be written in?
That would,
That
We don't
comes
know.
to us
yeah,
separately.
that would come to us, but we don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
until they come to us.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
current plan just has no reference to the yacht club. They'd have to come, their own proposal.
Thank you.
I'll just comment on timing. We don't know what could happen over the next year, right? And if we have a board who is committed to a project of this scope, ready to start, I think it's important that we go ahead with it. The sooner that we get a bucket in the ground, a shovel in the ground, the sooner that this project can be done, and we will have the improvements. So to delay a year, that would be uncomfortable for me. So from a planning and zoning standpoint, I'm certainly ready to recommend to the village board to approve it
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Stipulations.
with the conditions that we've discussed, yes.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. I guess, is there a second, and we'll have further discussion, okay. Any further discussion? And again, I'm not at all critical of the agency. I think the agency's come toward us and been very forthright, and just there are a couple variables or moving targets that I was just trying to get my arms or eyes around this evening, and but I think you've obviously been operating in very good faith and trying to do what's best for the community, and we certainly appreciate that.
I'd like to offer an amendment. Was that a formal motion that
I thought it,
Professor Tolan? I missed that.
I did not say the word motion, but it was.
Okay, all of a sudden there was a
If
second.
it was
I was
interpreted
thinking
as a motion, it can be a motion.
I don't know what the formal procedure is, Ben, but I'd like to have the motion reflect that, specifically that the elements of the TESCA drawing package dated August 29th, the ones we've received this evening, be integrated into all the elements be integrated into the AECom design drawings, including specifically that the louver height on the east side be of a height to fully screen the generator from any location on the beach. And that prior to being considered by the village board, that the North Shore Sanitary District provide confirmation from the structural engineer that the yacht club design will not be constrained such that their footings will have to align with the tank walls and footings. And it seems to me that that's a very distinct possibility, because if you can run a crawled tractor over the beach on this roof, those loadings are way in excess of any point loading from that yacht club. So it doesn't seem to me that it's going to be a problem, and if it is, then I think the village ought to be concerned for the park district, because the park district has to run these big trucks and equipment down and on the beach all the time, and if all that has to be done by water, that's an issue. So I really hope that question is asked, that we get a specific answer to that question.
Okay, so we had a motion, or to
I'll
incorporate, but do you want to incorporate basically as a friendly amendment to your motion to include everything that Member Russell just
I will
indicated?
revise the motion to include the amendment from Member Russell.
Then we'll get a second.
Second.
I would
Okay.
ask, if I may add, George, a reasonable, by the yacht club, because if they bring in, who knows what kind of weight, I'm not concerned about crawlers and trucks, but the boat racks themselves and so I think what they have now, certainly, what I think they're gonna do, certainly it's gonna be fine. I just think you need to put in reasonable within that language. Because I think we're all comfortable with what we're gonna do, because we can't afford to do some crazy thing. So I think reasonable is a word that I think we should all reasonably accept.
It's hard to define the word reasonable. I think getting the structural engineer involved will solve all the questions, and
So can we read it back, what we said?
So I think we have a motion, we just need a second.
Yes, second.
She's second.
Yep.
And second.
okay. Any other conditions?
Well, why don't you read it through again and.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is we're just trying to make a very, very complete and accurate record of what our
so
asks
would you like me to
are.
take a stab at it?
So,
Trustee Peters?
If you'd like to, Mr. Russell, please.
Proof it.
A motion to approve the project as presented with the understanding that the elements of the TESCA drawing package of August 29th be integrated into the AECom design drawings, including the louvers on the east facade be of a height to fully screen the generator from any location on the beach, and that prior to the project being considered, that we receive confirmation from a structural and North Shore structural engineer that the roof will accommodate the design, normal design elements of the yacht club facility, and that they also will accommodate fully loaded truck loadings and/or excavator crawler weights that the Park District is gonna have to run across the roof of this tank.
Can we add that about the generator being lowered, or they were considering looking into the placement of the generator?
They're gonna have
But
the
it's gonna be
louvers,
hidden.
louvers will be.
But even if they were talking about raising it up and bringing it back, is that going to be enough? Or they were saying they possibly going to integrate it better? I mean, is it in the best position that we consider it? Is it worth having a discussion, that's all? Not necessarily placed in the questionable column.
I think it's already raised up and pushed back.
We were just wondering if it needed to be raised. But I guess if it's not, then it would be in the bluff.
Right.
Can't touch the bluff.
Right.
Right.
Any other conditions? We've talked about the plantings, we've talked about the guardrail.
That's it. Those are in the Tesca drawings, though, right?
No, well, the details of the guardrail, I mean, aren't in the Tesca drawings.
Right.
It's certainly in our record, our records are going, Glenn, to the village board. I would hope that any of these other elements that were specifically addressed and specifically confirmed by North Shore, that these can be identified by staff and confirmed before the project moves forward to the board, correct?
Yes. Before we keep going with the motion, I'll just highlight one thing. So again, on the changes to this east facade in particular, right? We've talked about the generator and the louver height. You've heard from North Shore that they're working on relocating that vent pipe that goes from the main building to the odor control building. And this trash receptacle down here, typically would not be acceptable under village code. Again, you could recommend that the board allow that deviation to allow this to be in the open, even if it's down an alleyway, or you could add as a condition that this needs to be provided with a enclosure, a four-sided enclosure. So up to you which one the group would recommend.
I'd go with the enclosure.
I like the enclosure.
I mean, I think that's a very reasonable request.
Does the applicant need to respond to that? I thought you specifically indicated that if the trash receptacle was where it's presented, that you could not have an enclosure because it needed to be moved. I think not only to get an access hatch below it, but to get to the door on the side of the other.
In the bluff behind it, and we can't make a structure around the trash enclosure and still keep access open. If you want to get access, you have to remove the 8-yard dumpster, the recycle dumpsters, then you have clean access. You have to build walls and gates, you can't get in.
I don't want to make a motion that they can't comply with her condition. They can.
We'll take that motion away.
Yeah.
Public generally aware of this? As far as impact on the beach and everything?
I can talk about that too.
I think you should, because I think it's gonna be a critical, it's gonna be a critical factor. It's gonna impact life,
Yeah. So the question from Chair Peters was just if the public's been made aware of this. So to give a summary, we've had we've had an article up on the village's website for some time talking about the plan and the concepts, and of course talking about the disruption to the beach. I know the last issue of On the Bluff, which is our mail newsletter that goes to all households, had had an article in there talking about the timeline and the disruptions, and the next issue of On the Bluff should be in Home in about a week or two. We'll talk about that as well from the Park District perspective and the village board perspective. So in addition to all that, of course, this has been in our weekly newsletter a few times now, and of course, the requisite notice in the newspaper and to neighboring properties, et cetera, as far as the legally required notice for this hearing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gold.
See the motion in a second, so you can call it out.
Okay. Yeah, all right. We should have a vote.
Okay. Member Sorensen,
Aye.
Member Danley,
Aye.
Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Fisher,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Toll,
Aye.
and Chair Peters.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much for your insights, and thank the community for their insights and guidance also. All right, agenda item number 4, number 5?
Staff report.
Staff report.
Sure, so, we'll give it just a moment here. So, staff report, we'll keep it relatively brief. As you heard at your 6 o'clock meeting, we have enough time and we'll schedule, I believe, hearings on the revised PRD ordinance to start September.
Gavel him.
I could, but I'm not going to.
We'll have those start on Wednesday, September 21st. So you'll see that ordinance in ordinance form here for you to begin to work through the formal process. At this time, no applications for September. Trying to think what else is out there. I know we still have a couple minor issues we're looking to bring back to this group. One is about hours of operation in the Central Business District. We may bring that back for discussion one more time and with some invitations to the public, depending on how heavy that September 21st agenda looks. I also know that the timing of how we foresaw a few things hasn't worked out quite as we thought this year. We may bring back some historic preservation focused items to you in September as well to start discussing. Perhaps, not sure if that'll take the form of a workshop or if there's parts we've discussed that may be appropriate just to start hearings on that are relatively straightforward, but stay tuned for that as well. I think that's the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Commissioners report, agenda item number 5.
Just a question, any update on Stonebridge?
Yeah, so our architectural salvage work at Stonebridge has finished. They're continuing their marketing period as required by the settlement agreement. No applications, no sales, nothing like that. And I should mention too, no applications for demolition either. I'm not quite sure if the time period has passed where they could start to demolish the manor house, or that one escapes me at the moment. But again, just essentially status quo.
And I will report that because I was confident that Jill and Deb may not go drinking after 10 o'clock on that night, that I did go uptown on 2 different weekends, and there are definitely people on the streets in front of establishments after 10 o'clock. And in fact, in one particular instance, all 4 of our drinking establishments had people out front after 10 o'clock. So,
And they weren't all me.
It wasn't the evening before the 4th of July, so when we consider our time bumps, we should take into account reality.
Good point.
People are, on Friday, this was Friday and Saturdays, not,
No, we said 11, right? We said midnight.
anyway, for what it's worth.
Summer in Lake Bluff.
It's amazing, it used to be a dry town.
Yeah, not that long.
Pent up demand.
All right, any other comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, agenda item number 6, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. For whatever reason, it seemed a little disjointed, but I'm not sure why.
No, I don't think so.